Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to our YouTube live today, folks. Thanks for joining us. This is raw, unedited, uncensored, no special effects, just like the rest of our videos. We're doing a head-to-head comparison today between the USA's EB-5 Investment Immigration Program, the very popular one, yes, and the Canadian Startup Visa Business Program, which is also quite popular up north. You may be asking yourself, how are these two even related, Reza? It's simple. They're the only investment in business immigration direct residency programs for applicants seeking to settle to the US or Canada, in terms of investment or business immigration only. And if you're not eligible for one, then you could be eligible for the other and have access to the other country due to their close proximity and relationship. We know many people may not be eligible for either the Canadian Startup Visa program or the US's EB-5 program, which is why this comparison between the two programs is very important for our viewers. This will be an in-depth analysis between the two programs side by side, so you're fully aware of all the criteria and risks before you decide to which program to apply to. Just like the rest of our videos, expect nothing else than the exposed truth for investment migration, residency, and citizenship programs, just like the rest of our YouTube videos. And if you want to ask us a question or engage with our office related to this topic or other topics, make sure you visit our website and fill out the contact information. Quick introduction before we jump into the head-to-head EB-5 versus the Startup Visa program. Yeah, I know you must love the thumbnail. We created the two prime ministers and presidents of both countries. Which program will prevail? But it's not a competition, folks, which one is going to beat the other. It's all about which one is more suitable for you or your clients, depending on where they want to end up with and how quickly they want to get there with what budget. My name is Reza, founder and CEO of Ingwe Immigration, licensed immigration firm with over 20 countries on our portfolio in terms of investment to residency and citizenships. We've been helping thousands of families since 2018, and we helped clients from over 55 different countries navigate through the complex landscape of business and investment migration. We cover Europe, Central America, North America, the Caribbean islands, and even New Zealand. Whether you're seeking fast-track residency, investment in real estate that leads to some sort of residency or citizenship, finding a crypto-friendly tax country, or perhaps even acquire direct citizenship without moving from your country, whether it's for yourself, future generations, we do offer a diverse range of options. And remember, folks, our team speaks over 10 languages, and we help you with your second, third, or fourth residency or citizenship without limitations, because that's what our expertise is. So let's jump in. So you want to move to North America, okay? And if you don't want to, if you want to move out of North America, make sure you watch our other videos, because this is just for folks who want to move to any of these two North American countries, which is US or Canada, and want an investment or business migration program, which is a permanent immigration option leading to either a green card in the US or permanent residency in Canada. And this live video is for you. None of these options we're covering today include the intra-country transfer or the L1 US program, which are both work authorization, work permit programs. They are not direct residency programs or permanent immigration programs. If you're considering direct programs which allow you to apply for permanent residency and your family or a green card from overseas without entering the US or Canada first, or having to stay inside either of these two countries before you can become eligible for these residency programs, then you can technically only have two of these options that we're covering today. It's the US EB-5 Investment Migration Program and the Canadian Startup Visa Immigration Program for both of these countries, okay? And folks, right after, we're gonna answer any questions or comments you may have in our YouTube, because this is a live session. So you can post those questions, and after a quick presentation in this side-by-side comparison, I'd be happy to answer or clarify any points you may have. We're going to complete a side-by-side comparison between these two programs for the US and Canada, which are both permanent immigration programs. So don't mix them up with other programs. If you're serious in moving to any of these two countries in North America, then you'll need to be aware of the key differences. You may have a limited budget, or you may, not afford the US program, or perhaps you're from a country which is restricted to apply for the US, or another combination of factors which make you ineligible or may affect you applying for either Canada or the US? Well, let's look at both of these programs. The program overviews. The US EB-5 program is an employment-based fifth preference immigrant visa program for foreign investors, creating jobs in the US through an investment. It's a passive investment migration program, and we'll cover what that means. The Canadian Startup Visa is a permanent immigration program for entrepreneurs investing in a viable startup or an existing business to establish in Canada, allowing up to 5 investors or co-founders to apply together in an innovative business that will be endorsed by a designated organization in Canada. What's the final outcome of both of these programs? Well, in the EB-5 investment program, you'll receive a U.S. green card for the main investor and eligible dependent family members. And for the Canadian Startup Visa program, you receive a direct permanent residency for the co-founders, the eligible co-founders of the startup immigrating to Canada, and their eligible dependents and family members. And we'll cover what that eligible dependency also means. Okay, what's the eligibility to apply for these programs? The basics. For the EB-5 US program, invest in a new or existing US commercial enterprise, creating at least 10 full-time jobs for the US workers. These projects are pre-approved by the US EB-5 regional centers, which is part of the entire program. The project can be in real estate, heavy industry, tech ventures, hospitality, or any other type of industry without restriction, as long as they create those jobs and are approved by the regional centers. The main applicant should not be from a restricted country, have any criminality, and has to be able to prove the source of funds or wealth for the investment amount of 800,000 US that they're investing in this project. Okay, so that means they have to prove every little detail of where this money was accumulated, whether it was in the last 5, 10, 20, or even longer years in terms of providing documentation. So you can't just say, hey, yeah, I got this money, I invested in some projects in the last 10 years and made money. No, it doesn't work like that. You don't need any language for the EB-5. You don't need proof of work experience or education. Let's look at the Canadian Startup Visa program eligibility. Secure a commitment from a designated Canadian venture capital fund, angel investor, or business incubator or accelerator, which are outlined on the Canadian government website participating in this Startup Visa business program. Applicants must meet language and settlement fund requirements such as English or French as a score of Canadian language benchmark of 5. No criminality, and they have to clear medical exams, including their family members. Education is not mandatory, but minimum settlement funds, which is quite basic, it's about $30,000 for a family of 4, and this depends every year. This number increases. So if you're watching this in April or May 2025 onwards, check the link that we're posting with this article for the latest funds, because this is adjusted according to inflation. Okay, let's look at the investment amount. Minimum 800,000 US investment in a targeted employment area, also called TEA, for the EB-5 investment program for the US. If it's not a targeted employment area, it would be 1,050,000 in other regions. So this is the minimum investment required for the EB-5 investment, and 99% of our clients and applicants do end up investing the $800,000 in a target employment area. For the Canadian Startup Visa Business Program, there's no direct investment requirement published by the government, but the applicant must secure private funding, whether from their own funds or the other co-founders or other investors. You can expect investments starting from 180,000 US plus, in terms of a fair expectation, depending on the industry, the business concept, number of investors involved in the startup group. And if you already have revenues and profits from your startup, well, then you don't need to show additional funds because you've got retained earnings, right? I assume so. And if you don't, you need to show those funds as co-applicants or co-founders of the program. What's the timelines? Well, it takes anywhere from 12 to 24 months for the initial petition, the I-526E for the US EB-5 program, to be processed. Right? And that depends on your nationality and that region where you're applying from. And usually 1.5 years to 2 years, that's what we like to tell our clients, it takes to be approved in order to apply for your conditional green card. So you can get your conditional green card, which is the second stage of the EB-5 US program, before the final green card at a later stage. For the Canadian Startup Visa, it takes about 12 to 31 months total, depending on whether your priority designated organization has endorsed you or non-priority. And it also may depend on your nationality because there may be background and security checks. Do applicants need to visit the country before applying? No requirement to visit the US before applying EB-5, and no requirement to visit Canada before applying for the startup visa program. So they're quite similar. What about the investment amount? Will it be returned or refunded under either program? Well, under the EB-5 investment program, the return of the $800,000 or the $1,050,000 depends on the approved EB-5 project offered by the regional center. If it is a loan or investment in return for, if it's either a loan or an investment in return for equity, and other factors such as the quality of the project would affect the likelihood of success for the investor to recover their investment. Typically, 5 to 7 years. If somebody is guaranteeing you 4, 3, or 2-year return, that's BS. We're releasing a video and article about the top mistakes to avoid for EB-5 investors in 2025, so you can message us in case you're interested to find out when that's released. The investment for the startup visa program for Canada. The investment is made in an innovative startup business. Will you get it back? The ROI or return on investment depends purely on the performance of the business and the terms of the investment. If it's your own startup and you control it fully, well, you know best. Will you see your money back? If you're a co-founder and investor joining a startup, well, look at this. Typically in the startup business ecosystem, and I'm talking about it globally, not just for Canada, the probability of having your investment returned or refunded soon in the first 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years is extremely low. Keep in mind, most startup businesses, 95% or more, fail in the first 5 years. But that is not a factor in terms of the startup visa business program for Canada, whether it's profitable or that you'll get your money back. That's not a condition for immigration. We're just covering that in terms of the investors who are looking out there to whether this money they're spending in the US for the EB-5 or the Canadian startup visa business program, if they'll get it back. Are there any restricted countries not eligible to apply? Yes, the US EB-5, and we know the US loves to sanction everyone and everything out there. Well, Cuba is not allowed Cuban nationals, Iranians, North Koreans, Syrians, and Russians. So I do apologize if you're from one of these countries. You currently, as of January 2025, you're not eligible to apply. But in Canada, you're eligible to apply no matter where you're from. You just have to make sure you've got criminal and medical clearance and you meet the rest of the eligibility. There are no nationality restrictions for any type of Canadian immigration. What are the eligibility of the dependents? Spouse and unmarried children under the age of 21 are eligible for the US EB-5 program. Spouse and dependent children under the age of 22 are eligible for the Canadian startup visa program. So similar. Hold on, folks. Give me a second. Okay, sorry. We got a loud office today. Eligibility age for the dependent children. So let's open this up more. Dependent children must be unmarried and under the age of 21 for the EB-5 US program. The Children's Status Protection Act, CSPA, locks in the child's age at the time of filing your initial application for the US EB-5 program with your investment, because first you make the investment and then immediately apply the I-526 petition. The locked-in age is preserved during the processing of this petition, I-526, but resumes counting once a petition is approved until a visa number is available. So in case there's a backlog and you cannot obtain your conditional green card to enter the US for you and your family, during that timeline, your child's age is unfrozen or unlocked. So if delays occur and there is a backlog, and as of December 2024 and January 2000, the backlog is minimal, so it's the best time to apply. Your child age can become ineligible if they turn 21 before the adjustment of status. They no longer may be qualified, which is kind of not very good. But with the Canadian startup visa program, dependent children must be under the age of 22, so it could be literally a day before their birthday, right? Unmarried and fully financially dependent on their parents. Age is determined at the time of application submission, meaning the PR. Unlike the US EB-5 program, the locked-in age of the dependent child happens at the time of the PR application. So after the letter of support issued by the designated organization endorsing your startup. and is intact until either the following happens. So that means the lock-in period for your dependent child is there until either the permanent residency decision is issued, you're approved or not approved, that's it. So that may take 1, 2, 3, whatever amount of years, or the dependent child is not dependent anymore. So they get married or they become fully financially independent. Who knows, right? That can also disqualify them. So that's something to consider. There is quite the difference between the two programs. So if you've got children who are, let's say, 21 and change, or even 21, I'd be careful about the EB-5, and you'd have to be quick on the Canadian Startup Visa program to lock in their age. Residency requirements. Well, for the EB-5 US program, there's no physical residency requirements. The project in which the applicant has invested must maintain the investment and the job creation for the conditional period, the 10 jobs minimum. The applicant can remain outside of the US until the conditional green card is approved, i.e. a I-526, and then a visa allocation for the conditional green card is approved to come in. Applicants from inside the US can also apply for this program, which is beautiful, and convert their status. Okay. For the Canadian Startup Visa program, there's no minimum presence required inside Canada until a PR decision is issued. So you can apply for the permanent residency from overseas and wait till a decision is made. A work permit is optional for Startup Visa program co-founders, whereby the government officer expects the applicant to remain inside Canada for a significant period of time to operate and start or run the startup business, if the applicant chooses and is an essential member to apply for a work permit. Remember, under the Startup Visa business program, the work permit is optional for essential members. So if you don't want to do that, you become non-essential, you stay back in your own country until the BR, until the permanent residency. But if you are very keen on coming into Canada before the 2 years is up for your PR decision or more, then you can opt for the work permit option if you're an essential member. Okay. And when you do have a work permit, it's not written on their website that you have to stay in Canada the whole time, but it is expected to spend at least 6 to 8 months of the year there, because otherwise they'll be like, well, why did you even apply for work permit? Okay, folks, here's another key comparison factor that we need to cover between the EB-5 US program and the Canadian program. Okay, we're going to look at this under different criteria again. Can you apply from inside the country to change your status to that investment program or business program? So as I cover in the US EB-5, that's possible. So you could be under a study permit, a study visa, a work permit, H-1B1, whatever it is, and apply to convert inside the US to that conditional green card after your I-526 is approved, post-investment. Under the Startup Visa Business Program, there is no regulation banning you from applying for your permanent residency from inside the country. There are restrictions on the work permit, otherwise no. Work permit option to stay inside the country until final decision. Is that possible with the US EB-5 program? Well, no. You're outside the country until you have a conditional green card that comes in. So the conditional green card is like a work authorization. You can study, live, and reside. But it may take 1.5 years, 2 years if there's no backlog. With the Canadian Startup Visa program, co-founders who are deemed essential on the letter of support, which is issued by the designated organization endorsing your startup, have the option to apply for a work permit and enter Canada within the first, let's say, 6 to 8 to 10 months, depending on the processing time of the embassy, until a PR decision is made. So both have their own nuances. The EB-5 US gets a conditional green card, which is good. And then the Canadian program gives you a 1-year work permit, which is renewable for essential members to come into the country if you choose to be there before the PR. Okay, so that's pretty interesting. The family option to enter the country before the final residency options. Yes, the conditional green card would be issued for the eligible dependents of the main investor for the EB-5 US program, and for the Startup Visa Business Program for Canada, the co-founders eligible dependents, including children and spouse, would be eligible for open work permits and or study permits if the main applicant is approved for their own open work permit as an essential member of the startup group, if they choose to do so. Okay. What are the pathways to citizenship? Well, they're both similar. After maintaining a green card for 5 years, you can be eligible for U.S. citizenship through this program. So that means first you got you receive a permanent green card, and then you have to meet the eligibility criteria for U.S. citizenship, which is possible if you want to be taxed for the rest of your life on your international income. Permanent residency in Canada is granted initially for the start of visa business program. After 3 out of 5 years, you could become eligible for citizenship. Keep in mind that each member of the family has to meet their own eligibility criteria. This regulation may change in 2026 onwards for Canada, where we do predict that it will be 4 out of 6 years. So you got to keep that in mind when you're reading this article or watching this video. We've posted the link to check with the Canadian government website on this article. But it's right now, as of January 2025, it is faster to become a Canadian citizen than a US citizen. And actually, interesting factoid, Canada has the fastest passport eligibility program in the entire G7 group of countries. Industries and business focus or restrictions. In the US EB-5 investment projects, especially the regional centers, it's all about real estate, hospitality, infrastructure, or any other industry creating jobs. It could be anything, tech, oil, whatever. Real estate is usually preferred by many people. There's no restrictions as long as they meet the job creation criteria. In the Canadian startup visa business program, there's no industry restrictions if the business is innovative and scalable. Keep in mind that traditional brick and mortar businesses such as retail stores, coffee shops, restaurants would not be considered innovative under this program. If you're looking for those programs that would lead to permanent residency through the provincial entrepreneur program, we posted an article regarding those programs and your options in terms of getting permanent residency through that channel. You can refer to the article on our website after this live video posted on, I guess, January 2nd, 2025. Are co-applicants allowed under the US EB-5 program? No co-applicants are allowed. However, each EB-5 regional center project may have hundreds of investors that are processed for the same project, but they're all processed independently for immigration. So they don't even know each other, right? But one project can accumulate multiple investors, hundreds if needed. Usually the projects we do, they are looking for anywhere from 20 to 40 investors, okay? Because you don't want to go beyond that. That'll be a really crowded bus. With the Startup Visa Business Program in Canada, up to 5 co-founders can apply together for permanent residency to Canada by investing and being involved in the same business startup project. All co-founders' names would be included in the letter of support issued by the designated organization endorsing or sponsoring the startup and deemed either essential or non-essential members. Applicants can also apply as solo founders if they don't want to be with 5 people, right? It could be 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 co-founders applying together for the startup business, but you'd have to bear all the costs of the jumpstarting the business and all the program fees if you're going alone or with 2 people. Keep that in mind. What are the approval rates? Well, the I-526E petitions post-investment, it's quite high in 2023, okay? For legacy I-526 pre-RIA, it's 66% in 2023 and 64% in 2024 Q1. Those are the figures that have been released or published so far. With the Startup Visa Business Program, it's moderate, the approval rates for permanent residency. I'm not talking about the work permits. So it depends on the quality of the business plan, designated organization, and the profiles of the co-founders. The average approval rate has varied between 65 to 75% during the past 4 years, like post-COVID. The quality of the applicant, their profiles, business, legal guidance that they're receiving are all factors that can lead to either lower or higher approval rates. More than 50% of the refusals of the Startup Visa Business Program are due to technicalities, like minor technicalities on eligibility and admissibility, which could have been avoided if the applicants were fully aware and properly advised and guided. Because the Canadian government website is not so clear in terms of the expectations. It's one thing what they expect, it's another thing what they've actually posted on their website and their regulations and internal instructions for the public to view. What are the government processing steps? Well, for the EB-5 US program, you make the investment, you pick the project, you make the investment in the regional center project, you file for the I-526E petition for your immigration, you complete the visa processing at a consular or adjustment of status based on that backlog, so that could take 1.5 years, 2 years. You file an I-29 for permanent residency when the certificate has been issued from the project that 10 or more jobs have been created based on your investment. And that's when you remove the conditions of your green card for you and your family with the I-29. So typically clients would be inside the US by then. Okay. Those are the key stages. So the investment, the I-526E, to obtain that visa allocation in the conditional green card. Then after about 2-3 years, you could receive you can remove the conditions of the green card through the I-29 for permanent residency in the US. For the startup visa business program, first stage is getting a letter of support from the designated organization, angel investor, venture capital, incubator. Submit the PR application, undergo medical and background checks, make sure you have all your eligibility documents, and opt in for the optional work permit if you're an essential member. So that's optional. If they choose to do a work permit, it should be after they applied for the permanent residency and they've met the eligibility of the criteria for the permanent residency under the startup visa business program. What are the key benefits of both programs? Well, they're both permanent residency programs. So green card in the US and permanent residency in Canada. You have access to the US for you and your family, education, business is always good down there, or reuniting with relatives. And with the Canadian sort of visa program, keep in mind it's the only direct federal business immigration program that leads to permanent residency from overseas right now, as of today of publishing this video and article. What are the key challenges, or let's say disadvantages? Well, it's a high investment amount for the US program, depending on from your point of view, and lengthy processing times relative. And of course, the source of funds is the key. If you cannot prove the source of funds, the $800,000 that you invest in for the EB-5 US investment program, don't even bother applying. Or if you're from a restricted country. With the Canadian Startup Visa program, securing commitments of letters of support from the designated organizations sometimes can be challenging depending on who you work with. Processing times can vary, so it can be longer or shorter if you're from a priority designated organization or non-priority. If an essential member is refused in the startup group, so let's say you're more than one investor and you've got 2, 3, 4, or 5, and one of you or more of you are essential members, which is stated on the letter of support, and if the essential member is refused for any reason for the permanent residency, not the work permit, then all the members of the startup group are refused. That's just by default, and that's a major disadvantage. So, folks, based on the above comparison that we've just done, the EB-5 US versus the Canadian Startup Visa versus, we can understand and conclude the following. If you don't have the ability to take an English or French language exam and score Canadian language bank stroke of 5, then you cannot apply for the Canadian program. You should apply for the US EB-5 program. If you cannot provide proof of being paid for your past work experience, either as an employee, manager, or business owner, either payroll, dividends, or management bonuses, then you should apply. Then you should apply for the EB-5 program, not the Canadian Startup Visa program, because you wouldn't be eligible. If you cannot prove the source of funds for your $800,000 or higher investment in the approved EB-5 Regional Center project with proper documentation, then you will not be eligible. And I don't recommend applying for the EB-5 US. If you're from a sanctioned or restricted country based on the US government website, you would not be eligible to apply to the EB-5 US program, but would rather have to apply for the Canadian sort of visa program. If you cannot afford the $800,000 minimum investment for targeted employment areas of the EB-5 projects and the EB-5 investment program, then the Canadian Startup Visa program can be more affordable, which is less than 1/4 of the price based on the current USD and Canadian dollar exchange rate as of January 2nd, 2025. And if you want to apply and become a permanent resident of either of these countries, US or Canada, then these two programs are pretty much the only direct investment business immigration programs out there as of this date of publishing this article and video. Both countries' citizenships have visa-free access to enter each other's countries in case you're not eligible to apply for US, but want to apply to Canada as a stepping stone to get into the US, or vice versa. You're from a restricted country, you've got relatives in US, and then you're looking, hey, where should I move to? Well, Canada is an option, and we have a lot of clients that fall into that category. Both countries' passports are ranked in the top 10 in the world and allow your family to obtain citizenship as well with you, as long as they meet the eligibility after you receive the permanent residency in either country. If you like immigration hacks, creative immigration solutions, or key analysis and exposed truth about immigration policies, investment options, updates, then you can click on our YouTube channel to subscribe. And of course, we're releasing more EB-5 investment program videos in 2025 and startup visa business programs for Canada, plus many more programs in Europe, Caribbean islands, New Zealand, you name it. We've got it. And especially with Panama in Central and South America. So you subscribe to be notified. We have numerous in-depth videos that you'll enjoy watching. And I hope today's been an informative and insightful session for all our viewers when comparing the realistic options to immigrate to either the US or Canada, which are top two destinations. Thanks for tuning in, folks. And we're going to jump into our questions and comments. Of course, this is a live session. Make sure to stay connected with us for the latest updates and insights. Our team speaks over 10 languages. We've helped clients from over 55 countries, whether it's citizenship or residency, and we will help you and guide you throughout the entire process. You can click on the link below this video to reach out to our office or book a one-on-one consultation. Either way, we're happy to help. So we got some questions and comments on our video right now. This is a live stream, so no censorship as usual. We've got Jai Jewel. Hello, Reza. Happy New Year to you and yours. Thank you, Jai. Happy New Year to everyone. Hopefully 2025 will be an interesting year comparing on what's happening in the political world. Jai Jewel, IRCC replied me in September 2024. After 3 years of waiting, I submitted the required documents and I've been waiting since then for the SUV permanent residency program, the start of visa business program. Yes, Jai. Many applicants who applied, let's say around COVID time, anywhere from 2020 to 2020, end of 2022, have been stuck in a very long backlog, delayed backlog, and they're being processed, and we're seeing that they're going to be processed this year. And it slowed down last year, Jai. So that's a key factor to consider against the Canadian Startup Visa Business Program. Last year, post-February, March, everything slowed down there, but it's going to pick up this year again. King, so you got to hang in there, Jai. King Noah plays Minecraft. Okay, that's a cool name. Do we need, so this person is asking question, do we need business experience for the Canadian Startup Visa business? Yes, you do need business experience. So it could be different kinds of business experience. So it could be technical experience, right? You don't have to be a business owner. You could be a software engineer. Maybe you're a scientist. Maybe you're a PhD academic, right? Or you could be a business owner. You don't have to be an employee. You could be an owner, but you have to have proof that you've been getting paid, right? So work experience is important, right? So let's say you're involved in some kind of fintech, but you were working as a cook in a restaurant. Well, I wouldn't recommend that, okay? But you do need business experience that shows you have relevant skills to transfer over to the startup to help them become successful. Hopefully that's answered your question. Humayun Sharif, how much IRCC will take time for SUV? Humayun, depends on the priority designated organization or the non-priority that's endorsing your startup. If you're doing a non-priority, it can take up to 3.5 years. If you're doing a priority, it can be within 18 months. And this is for permanent residency. I'm not talking about the work permit option. Nikki Patel, hello, Reza. Hey, Nikki, how are you? Happy New Year to you as well. It's going to be an interesting year for sure. Humayun Sharif, Jai, what documents are IRCC asked? Oh, good question, Humayun. But keep in mind, there's a lot of requests, but it depends on the startup, Humayun. It depends on your nationality, the composition of your startup, which designated organization, what is the concept of the business, what traction you've made. There's a lot of questions they may ask you. Of course, Jai can share her views, but each case is different. Each request letter for the startup visa business program is there. Folks, if you like this video, please press a thumbs up on the video. I get a raise this year and my salary will increase if I can get a lot of likes. I'm just kidding. I don't get paid for this. Humayun says, success ratio for the Canadian Startup Visa Business Program 2024 and how application startup visa business is pending. How many? Well, we don't know, Homayo. We don't know how many are, and the success ratio, it's too early. It takes about a year and a half, 2 years to get government statistics. So those questions are good, but they're a bit too early to have anyone report. Ash 1, hello Reza, what is current processing times for SUV? We've been seeing delays and fast processing, slow processing, Ash. We've seen a lot of the new applications which were submitted late 2023 or early 2024 being processed now, but also a lot of stagnation with the older files. Before the whole priority, non-priority was declared in April 2024, we have a lot of cases since end of 2022, early 2023, who are still waiting to be processed. So it depends when you process and which designation processed you, Ash. Right now, we're looking at 18 months for priority, and then the old cases, it can be 3 years, right? And if it's non-priority, we don't know. No problem, Homayoun. So Ash, I hope I've answered your question. Folks, if you've got questions or comments, as long as it's not offensive to any of the audience members, you can post it. Ash, I applied in July and got biometrics and file number. Okay, that's perfect, Ash, because right now with the start of Visa Business Program, you do receive a permanent file number within around 6 to 8 months. So some people get in 5 months, some 6, some 7, right? This was the case in 2024. 2025, Pandora's box. Let's see what's going to happen. But that doesn't mean your PR's process. That just means there's a human being who your file has been put on their desk, and when they have time, they can look at your file and start processing, asking questions, requesting updates. So that could take a year, year and a half, let's say. Okay, keep that in mind. So everyone will have different processing times depending on whether the priority, non-priority, when they applied. We have cases since end 2022 that have been sort of stuck because there's a backlog, and the IRCC is now processing the new cases faster than what they did with the old cases, which is good news for new applicants, really bad news for the old applicants, right? The people who've applied already. Folks, I hope this video has been useful for you, okay? Because I know a lot of people consider North America as their final destination to settle their family, themselves, their business, their kids, right? It's an investment in the future, whether it's US or Canada. If you're looking at investment migration, if you're looking for high likelihood of success, you're looking either at the EB-5 US program, if you're eligible, or you're looking at the Canadian Startup Visa Business Program, if you're eligible. And that's why we did this side-by-side comparison today. Homayoun said, Homayoun, one of our audience members today, is asking, I got an acknowledgement 2 times, which may additional document request 2 times, which with my file is processing. Yes, that's very normal, Homayoun. You can get 1, 2, 3, even 5 times additional document requests. There's no limitation. The officer can ask you as many questions and documents as they need in order to make a proper decision based on the immigration regulations of Canada. Sergey explores. This is somebody asking a question. How IRCC quotes for the Startup Visa Business Program correlate with the time of year? If the yearly quotes are filled, does processing stop completely until the next year? Well, it's really tough, Sergey. It's a great question, by the way. It's really tough to say. You know why? It's because the quota and everything is shared with the self-employed federal permanent residency program, which is based on cultural arts and athletics, right? There was a huge backlog. They stopped new applicants and the processing goes. So the cap and everything is based on that. It's shared with the sort of visa business program. How many are processed in that category versus this category, nobody knows at this time till later on when the statistics are published, right? But if the quotas are filled, so if they have a target for economic immigration or these categories that they fall into, then yeah, they wouldn't stop doing them actually, because it's like, oh, we filled it by June, we're going to go on holiday for 6 months. No, they continue to process. They don't make decisions, so they stagger them. Okay. But the problem with the Startup Visa Business Program for Canada is that the cap and everything in Targa are shared with the self-employed program. So it's really tough to know what are they doing on both sides. It's crazy. It's a mess. But anyways, that's life. I hope I've given you some insight, Sergey. I appreciate and a lovely question. Excellent question. Folks, whether it's the US or Canada, we're here to help you. I'm back next Thursday. We're going to talk about, I don't know, probably citizenships or residency programs. Keep in mind that we have over 20 countries in our portfolio today. No matter which country you're from, if it's restricted or sanctioned, or if you're from North America looking to go outbound, we do have options for you. And these are very unique options across the globe: Europe, Central South America, North America, and even New Zealand. Whether it's fast-track residencies without moving, or citizenships without moving, we're here to help. Folks, see you next week, Thursday. And remember, apply with a plan. Just don't apply for the sake of applying. You got to do your research. You got to be informed. And that's why we're releasing these videos and these live streams. Thanks again, folks. Have a good one, and Happy New Year, 2025. It's going to be a very interesting year ahead. Take care, folks. Thanks for everyone for joining us today. Humayun, Sergey, Ashwan, Jai, Nikki Patel, and everyone in the background, in the dark, who didn't post a question or comment. Okay? No, just teasing you. Thanks again, folks. Take care. Bye-bye.